Went on a Tinder date and discovered she has an unusual turn on. I'm a 28-year-old guy who's been feeling the pressure from my family to find a relationship. Being the ever so anxious singleton, I turned to Tinder to try my luck. You know how it goes. Swipe right, swipe left, all in the hope of finding that one connection that sparks something special. So, about 3 days ago, I stumbled upon this woman who seemed genuinely nice and interesting. Her profile picture revealed a warm smile, and her bio was filled with the kind of hobbies and interests that caught my attention. We chatted, and everything clicked. That's what I thought. Our conversation flowed effortlessly, and I found myself thinking, could this be the one? After some back and forth, I mustered up the courage to ask her out. I suggested a good, reasonably priced restaurant for our first meeting. The restaurant choice was, unbeknownst to me at the time, a lifesaver. Our first meeting was mostly great. We talked and laughed, and I really liked what I saw in her. She was kind, soft-spoken, smart, and genuinely nice to others. Her eyes looked honest, and her laugh was comforting. Everything seemed perfect until we started ordering our food. Here's where things got weird. To my surprise, she ordered enough food to feed a small army, literally listed for 4 to 5 persons in the menu. The waiter's eyebrows shot up, and I initially assumed she might be one of those individuals who go on dates just to get a free feast. But I was wrong. She barely nibbled on her food, claiming she was full after just a few minutes. In my usual never waste food fashion, I began trying to finish what she couldn't. That's when things took an unexpected turn. She looked at me with a sly smile and said, "You're so handsome." Confused and with my belly practically bulging out to the world, I felt the burning stares of other patrons. I was beyond uncomfortable, my face turning red as a tomato. Fast forward to the end of the meal, and I'm stuffed to the brim, holding back the urge to feel sick. But guess what? The evening was about to get even stranger. As we walked to my place, she decided to make a pit stop and bought a gallon-sized tub of ice cream. The true revelation hit when she whispered, "You can only get dessert if you finish this." Obviously, I had to ask what was going on. She confessed to having a feeding preference, and apparently, the only way to turn her on was for me to eat an absurd amount of food. Against all reason and my protesting stomach, I obliged. I managed to down until a quarter of that ice cream tub was left. To my surprise, and exhaustion, it worked. She seemed pleased. The night that followed was a mix of discomfort and a weird kind of satisfaction. It was so hard to move, being too full, like a balloon ready to burst. Morning came, and she left, leaving her personal number behind and suggesting I give her a call. Now I'm thinking, should I reach out to her again? Is this feeding preference thing normal? She's seriously one of the nicest women I've met, and I can't decide if I should let this unconventional quirk stop me from seeing her again. It's a puzzle I'm yet to solve, and maybe, just maybe, it's worth exploring further. After all, they say love comes in many flavors. My girlfriend left me because I took the life of a home intruder. I never thought my relationship would end because I had to defend my home from a burglar. It's still painful to write about this, and I have to admit, I'm still extremely upset about the entire situation. So, this happened several months ago, and I've waited for everything with the police to settle down. Fortunately, no charges were filed against me, but that's a minor relief. A bit of background, I moved back to the city where I grew up after graduating from school, ready to start my career. Through new friends and social gatherings, I met a woman I'll call Sarah. She was fantastic, smart, funny, and we had a ton in common. I eventually asked her to be my girlfriend, and she said yes. Sarah was everything I wanted in a partner, but she had an extreme dislike of violence due to some troubling experiences from her past. This didn't seem like an issue, even though I'm a hobbyist marksman and carry a firearm for personal security. Sarah knew all about this and assured me it wouldn't be a problem. Everything was going great until her landlord kicked her out of her apartment. I gladly offered her a place to stay with me in my house, which I shared with 2 housemates. This brings us to the night everything changed. We'd been living together a couple of months when I woke up one night to a loud banging on the door. The clock read 2:36 a.m., and those numbers are now etched in my mind. I knew something was terribly wrong, so I told Sarah to lock herself in the bathroom and call the police. Then, I grabbed my firearm from the nightstand. Just a few seconds later, the door broke open, and I caught a glimpse of a man turning the corner in the hallway. My heart was pounding, but I knew I had to protect Sarah and myself. I blasted the intruder twice. He fell to the ground, gasping, and then he was gone. The police arrived about 15 minutes later, and their behavior was incredibly frustrating. They barged in, asking foolish questions, and seeming upset that I didn't tell them everything right away. After the coroner took away the intruder, I was left to clean the stains off the floor. It was a gruesome task, and the rest of the night was sleepless. In the following days, I struggled to come to terms with what happened. Although I felt no guilt over my actions, seeing the intruder as a threat rather than a person, the event shook me. Sarah was utterly distraught. She left to stay with her parents, and a few days later, she called me. After a long conversation, she told me she couldn't continue our relationship. The fact that I had unalived someone was too much for her to bear. I was devastated. It felt like I'd lost everything because of one terrible incident, one bad decision made by a stranger. My dreams of a future with Sarah were shattered. I even had plans to take her to the aquarium because she loved fish. All of that was gone. Now, I'm left picking up the pieces, trying to understand how life can change so suddenly. I understand why Sarah left, but it doesn't make the pain any less real.
My fiancé is having an affair with a dead woman. Here's my dilemma. Do I postpone my wedding and give us a shot to work this out, or do I run for the hills? I'm wondering if I'm completely missing his perspective on all of this. My fiancé, 40 male, and I, 30 female, have been together for 9-ish years. A year or two into our relationship, we spent some time apart. As I felt he had an inappropriate relationship with a coworker, both realtors, we ended up getting back together, but he continued to sleep with her during the first few months of us trying to work things out. We did work things out. The infidelity isn't as big of an issue for me as it is for other people. I quickly felt trust with him again, and things were great. The issue of the affair has rarely come up since we talked through our resolution years ago. 6-ish years later, we got engaged. Almost a year after that, his mistress died. Excuse my cold tone with this, but to me she is not a good person, and I will never see her in that light. I found out she had a preference for taken men, and she played a big role in the end of 4 others' marriages. My fiancé went to the funeral and spoke, at her parents' request, despite my expressing how hurtful and disrespectful that was in my eyes. In the months following her death, he has participated in fundraising held in honor of this woman. I have continued to express how hurtful and disrespectful I find his involvement in all of this. I'm capable of, and have, moving on and forgiving him for the original affair, but when he keeps doing things that bring it to the forefront of our relationship, I can't help but feel hurt by it. There is a messy history after all. I feel like I have sacrificed so much, sat back, and been the one to bend and compromise on everything surrounding her in these situations, and I can't see anything that he's compromised on when it comes to it. All I see is an inappropriate and disrespectful emotional connection to his dead mistress. There was a small fundraising dinner in her honor the other night, and this is where things really hit the fan. I again expressed my feelings on the situation, especially since he didn't tell me until an hour before he was going to leave to attend. He said I need to get over the affair and stop holding it over his head, and I need to figure my stuff out. He wishes I could see his perspective because I wouldn't be upset if I stepped back and saw his side of things, yet, he couldn't articulate his perspective. He also said he was sick of my meritless threats after I said if he is going to continue to have an inappropriate emotional connection with his dead mistress, and bring it to the forefront of our lives together, that I couldn't live the rest of my life like that. He said he has the right to honor a good friend, and that she always had his back even after he chose me. This has really caught me off guard in the past year. I thought there was no connection to her anymore. I also thought I had a partner who would care enough about my feelings to be willing to change some of their actions. I know I would feel awful if he came to me and said that something I was doing was hurtful to him, and he found it disrespectful. I'm getting none of that from him. My fiancé said I stunk while we were getting it on. So for context, my fiancé, 24 male, and I, 23 female, have been together almost 5 years. This whole issue started this past Friday. For a little background, we are not the typical 20-something-year-old couple. We're usually in bed by 9, even on weekends. We don't go out much if ever, and both work over 40 hours a week easily. The one thing that gets people the most? We rarely are intimate. I'm talking like 3 times a month, 5 on good months. Maybe that's normal to some. But at 24 and 23, I feel like that's rare. I'm the one that has to ask for intimacy in the relationship. Every other night I try to talk him into it. It's always the same. I'm too tired. It's late. Tomorrow we can, or my favorite. If you asked earlier I would've. However, when he is in the mood and I don't comply, I might as well be in big trouble. He acts like it's the end of the world. So on Friday, I slept in a little later since I didn't have to go into work till later that morning. I no sooner opened my eyes, and my fiancé was over top of me. He says, "Honey, I have to leave for work, but I got some time if you wanna." Considering I just woke up and had zero energy, I mumbled something like, "Yeah, okay." In the middle of it all, I go to roll over, and I notice he's covering my backside with my shirt I still had on. I asked, "Why are you covering me up?" He flatly goes, "I think it's your butt that stinks," and continues. I stopped, got up, and was like, "Excuse me?" He goes, "What's wrong?" I said, "You think I'm not clean or something?" "Well, it has to be you. Go wipe it so I can finish." I could not for the life of me comprehend what I just heard, so I walk to our bathroom, and he follows. He goes, "You need to wipe yourself so you can see." I said, "You want me to wipe myself?" He said, "Yeah, and I want to see." This man, I kid you not, stood over me and watched me check myself, not once, but 2 times. Obviously, I was clean down there. So he goes, "Okay, let's finish." I said, "Absolutely not, I'm done." He got annoyed and was so confused why I wouldn't let him. I felt so embarrassed, insecure, confused, you name it. He must have realized he messed up when I looked at him with confusion, and all-around annoyance. He tried to say it came across meaner than he meant it to. I just said I was going back to bed. He left. He sent me an apology text stating he was sorry he was rude but wanted me to just wash it. I said okay. He asked if I was mad. I said, "No, not mad. I just won't be intimate with you for a good while. This morning really bothered me." He had the nerve to ask why. I went off. I said, "Not only was it super embarrassing, but also very rude how you went about it, and that made me, who was clean by the way, feel totally insecure, and you ended up getting frustrated with me because I wouldn't let you finish. Not to mention I had just opened my eyes when you wanted some." He said, "I know it wasn't your fault, that's why I said it." I sent him 2 long texts basically saying, "Who does that?" He's confused about how he could have handled it better and thinks he handled it the only way he could. Since then, I've barely said a word. Instead of crying or yelling, I've remained silent. I came home from work to a clean house, laundry done and animals fed. He's tried texting more than usual. I'm still answering, just very short. I don't know how to act. I know he probably feels terrible, but I don't know how I'll ever be intimate with him now after that happened. I know I'm probably overreacting, but I feel so off now. He's tried to kiss me, have me look him in the eye, and when I do, I just feel hollow. I don't know what to do. I love him with my whole heart. I just don't think what happened was okay.
I bought my homophobe brother-in-law gay-themed paintings for his house. When my sister said she was getting married, I was happy for her. But as the wedding day approached, I realized I didn't know much about the man she was marrying. I became curious and started looking through his Facebook feed to learn more about him. That's when I found something that made me stop and think. I found a bunch of posts against LGBT people on his page. There were pictures and words that made it clear he didn't like gay and trans folks, and some even hinted at violence towards them. Mixed in with all that were photos of him showing off guns and hunting gear, trying to look like a rugged outdoorsman. As someone who is openly gay, and with one of my sisters being bi, I found these posts deeply troubling. I was taken aback, upset, and even a little scared about who my sister was going to marry. But in the end, family is family, and it wasn't my place to choose who she marries. Even with my concerns, I couldn't ignore that the wedding was coming up, and I still needed to find a gift for the couple. Looking through their registry, I noticed items that seemed chosen by my sister, who didn't know much about hunting or her future husband's obtrusive hobbies. And then, right there in the middle of the list, something stood out to me. In the list of gifts, I spotted a set of nature paintings, each with only male animals. 2 deer in one painting, 2 moose in another, all males. Now, here's what makes these paintings special. Moose are usually solitary and gather together mainly during mating season, and when they do, it's typically one male with many females. Deer, on the other hand, are known for spending time with the same sex. These paintings, with their subtle depiction of male animals together, were a quiet nod to the LGBTQ community. My excitement was hard to hold back as I picked out those paintings. I found myself laughing at the thought of the situation. This man, who liked to show off his hunting skills but had never done more than shoot at tin cans with a second-hand firearm, would soon have his walls adorned with beautiful art that subtly celebrated same-sex relationships. On the day of the wedding, I observed him admiring the paintings, seeing only the masculine themes and missing the hidden meaning. My sister, unaware of his objectionable opinions, radiated joy, and I couldn't help but share her smile. Even though I had no control over my sister's decision, I had managed to express myself in a subtle way. The graceful yet unpretentious art would adorn their walls, serving as a continuous and silent reminder that love and nature don't always conform to traditional norms. In the end, it's about accepting the varied and intricate nature of life, something my future brother-in-law might learn one day. Until that time, I find peace in knowing that their home is decorated with a subtle nod to the very thing he openly dislikes, and he has no clue.